website, they seem to be quite serious about it. I mean, we're picking up the pieces after the war. I hate to refer to Sierra Leone as post-war. I think we've gone beyond that, but the evidence of the war is still there, and it's a fact that we have to deal with. So to see that they actually have a working, fairly up-to-date website, it's impressive. That is not common across government and para-government organizations in Sierra Leone. So I think it is something that is actually being paid attention to. That in itself is a success story.
No, that's very good to hear. And we would have Janet have a take as well on that. Janet, the same question goes to you. What's your take on the human rights situation in Sierra Leone in terms of the challenges and successes? Janet has talked about accountability and that government has a duty to actually ensure that the rights of citizens are upheld. From your perspective, what do you actually think of the challenges and the successes?
Yes. Well, what I'm going to do here is we have had from Mr. and Mr. Ansumana the challenges that are in the country about child prisoners and overcrowded prisons. People not being treated properly, but there's one thing I want to make clear here. What I would love to see to send across to those who are living in Sierra Leone is the idea that people in Sierra Leone are not quite familiar with their own rights to which they are entitled. I think this is where the problem lies. Government is the custodian of these people who they are in charge of. That is the agreement we have. That's the little arrangement. But if these people don't know their rights, so a lot of violations are taking place, and people are not challenging them because they are not aware. I think Mr. said quite rightly, there are a lot of challenges within the country. And what I would love to see here, as my learned friend just mentioned, there are areas that accountability clearly is lacking. Right. They are lacking in accountability. And if we cannot have government to account, in other words, what we're saying when we talk about accountability, we're talking about duties and responsibilities that government is undertaking and is upholding the rights of the people, and the people's rights are not violated. Who do we speak to? That's really what my learned friend is talking about. So if you ask me, what are the successes of the human rights actions in Sierra Leone, I will go straight and say to you, freedom of expression. Freedom of expression has seen a lift from where we were to where we are now.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So freedom of expression to you is the main success, yeah?
Yeah, it is a fundamental. It is the bedrock of our democracy. It is the bedrock of our democracy. And what has happened, I mean, like you said, away from all politics, just be a Sierra Leonean and expressing my own opinion, and from examples from 2008 to now, we can say freedom of expression has taken a different dimension. It has a different construct. In other words, journalists, even though we have a little report today by Umar Fofana about journalists being sent to prison, but we would say this is one of the areas we have seen, and therefore I would say on a scale of from 1 to 10, I would say Sierra Leone is in 9. Let's be fair. 9. Say, well, they have lifted, they have given a different face to the freedom of expression. So that is a big success for us. Yes.
Well, thank you very much for highlighting the successes like freedom of expression. It's definitely important. Everyone should have the right to express themselves, regardless of who is in power. Thank you very much for that. And another thing you touched on as well, which is very important, is that most people in Sierra Leone are not aware of their rights because there's no I don't know if there's a sensitization or what, but there's a lot of people that are definitely not aware, because sometimes with certain rights, human rights can be a bit complex. You should have a basic education to actually understand that. So for people like that, I think governments and other NGOs or human rights organizations should actually engage in some sensitization tour where they would actually explain to people what their rights is and hold little like seminars where people could go ask them questions about rights as well. So thank you very much, guys, for that. What I would like to go into now, and I will start with Josephine as well. Josephine, in Sierra Leone or even around the world, when people talk about human rights, some people seem to forget about the rights of prisoners. Apart from the overcrowded prisoners in Sierra Leone live in, they also live in inhumane conditions as well. And I was wondering how any good can come from their incarceration, because prisons shouldn't just be about punishment, it should be about rehabilitation as well. What I would like to know is, what is your take on the prison situation, and how can we make sure that upon their release, prisoners are able to live productive lives rather than be a burden to society?
Well, I think that actually straddles two areas. There is what is known as the right to a fair trial within the European ambit of the human rights legislation. There's an article dedicated to the right to a fair trial. And when we talk about rehabilitation now goes beyond the right to a fair trial. It goes within the ambit of social rehabilitation to ensure that they are fit for society. The two go hand in hand. But what we're looking at here is that in Sierra Leone, I doubt very much that prisoners have rights to a fair trial. People, like Messer rightly said, people are taken to a police station, frog marched into a cell without even taking a statement from them. I mean, there are signs in police stations, I have been reliably informed, which says that bail must be free, but if you don't have money, you don't leave the police station. I mean, it's almost like having money changers in the police station, like the biblical concept of money changers. If you don't have money, you're taken to the police station. It's about how much influence and how much money you have. That obviously is a clear violation of the rights of the accused, because it's a case of you're guilty until you are proven innocent, which turns the edict of being innocent until proven guilty on its head. That certainly has to be wrong. So in Sierra Leone, you'll find that we will have overcrowding in cells at the local police station level and at Pademba Road, simply because people, A, are taken to cells and are afraid because with the operative word in the article in Europe is fair. You have a right to fair trial. I'm not sure that we have in Sierra Leone effective legislation or an effective mechanism to guarantee that when people are accused and taken to a police station, that they would be fairly tried. So I don't even think that the police station is the right place to take somebody when what they have committed might be a tort, which is a wrong against another individual, rather than a crime, which is a wrong against the state. So to take people to a police station and then get them locked up and then take them to fester at Pademba Road is not necessarily the way a civilized society should go. This has been a legacy of years of what the legislative system in the country has been, and I think that needs to be reviewed. So for people to have a fair trial is one, and you touched on rehabilitation. If we have a framework within which there is transparency and we understand why people are actually held at our central prisons or any prison across the country at all, then we can take we can then move from there and understand what happens once a prisoner is released. Because once you've served your time, you shouldn't be serving your time for life. And I would expect that governments and other interested bodies should take steps to ensure that once people are released from prison, that they are rehabilitated and given a mechanism with which we can make them upright and upstanding members of our society, because that would be to the benefit of the whole society, not just to the benefit of the individual.
Indeed, a little bit of retributive and restorative justice. You cannot just punish someone, because at the end of the day, if they cannot actually change that bad behavior that took them to prison in the first place, then they are either going to be worse or actually make life difficult for citizens of Sierra Leone as well, which in itself is a violation of their rights. Okay, so Fabunde, the same question goes to you as well. Just ask Josephine about the rights of prisoners as well, and that most of the time people do forget about prisoners' rights when they talk of human rights. We've seen pictures on Facebook forums where the situation in Pademba Road was kind of scary, if you like, and the overcrowding was so horrible that people actually start thinking it was a death camp or slavery or so. So what do you think of the prison situation in Sierra Leone, and what do you think that they could actually do to ease this overcrowding, and also to make sure that when these people leave prison, they'll be able to lead a productive life in society?
Yeah, thank you very much. We need to understand here that, of course, it has been mentioned by the other panelists that access to justice and rule of law is a whole challenge, and that access to justice is a human rights issue, and for prisoners to be in those places that are being overcrowded, it's a human rights issue. It's a form of torture, in fact, because you can't inflict punishment on somebody who has been proven guilty of any offense in court. So the other word for prison imprisonment of people is correction. In other words, as been mentioned by Josephine, we need to have these people being taken out to be taken to go through some rehabilitation and maybe go through some corrective measures to improve their life in society and be part of development in the society. That notwithstanding, if there is, because of the challenge on this particular issue of overcrowded prisons, at the same time, even the health, the condition, the sanitation in the prisons, though there is some amount of improvement, but if I'm to give a percentage of that, there is really 20 or 30% of that improvement that I may mention in my take. But to the best of my knowledge, the situation here is really appalling. What I would suggest here is if I'm to talk to the government directly and the people listening to us, is let's see if we can have a speedy trial, so that we can have the prison being overcrowded, because too much adjournment of cases has contributed to the overcrowding of prisons. And at the same time, people, we need to have the prison or the detention centers in the country, because the crime rate in the country is increasing. Make no mistake about that. The crime rate in the country is increasing. So, but there should be a mechanism in place to help us, see how those crime rates could be minimized. And one of the ways is improve on the adjournment of cases and expand on the prisons right around the country, and see how we can improve on the prison condition, because the prison condition is really discouraging. At the same time, and even the staff, the prison officers, they need to be trained on right-based approach in prison management, because these prisoners, they are not guilty of any offense. Some are not. They are there on remand. They are yet to be proved guilty of any offense. So you can't treat them like any animals. You can't let them sleep on that. You can't let them sleep on floor, on bare mattresses. So it's really a human rights issue, and we need to look into that. And maybe, as I said in my recommendation, see how best we can minimize this too much adjournment of cases and expand the prisons, and again, train the prison officers on right-based approach in prison management.
Okay. Those are very salient points, Fabunde, especially when you said you cannot actually punish someone if you haven't found them guilty. You might end up finding the person innocent, but you punish them already. So there is something definitely that needs to look that they need to look at. Like you rightly mentioned as well, there should be speedy trials as well. Josephine also mentioned about the right to fair trial as well. But the reason for overcrowding could actually be explained by the fact that people haven't got they haven't got fair trial, and trials are very slow. They adjourn cases, and the crime rate is also increasing. Fabunde, just a quick question.